You're listening to Get Your Marriage On, the fun and spicy podcast bringing you new tools and fresh ideas so that you can be the sexiest couple you know.
Everyone, welcome to today's Sexpert interview. My guest is Dr. Corey Allan. He has a PhD in marriage and family studies. He is also the host of this podcast called Sexy Marriage Radio. You may have heard about it. It's in the top 10 in iTunes under the sexuality category, and it is excellent. Dr. Allan is a coach. He's a therapist. He writes a lot about topics regarding helping couples get the sexiest marriage they can have. And not only that, he's been married for 27 years to his wonderful wife, Pam, and together they have 2 kids. Dr. Allan, thank you for coming today.
Absolutely. This is fun. Anytime I can connect with you, Dan, it's a good thing. Let's go.
That's great. Yeah. And I can honestly call you a friend. We've been working together in various things over the last few years, and and you've had a tremendous impact on my marriage too through what you teach on your podcast.
For that.
So I'm honored. I wanted to ask you, a lot of my guy friends, we go out to lunch, they hear that I'm doing this podcast and I make apps to strengthen marriages, and then they open up about their sex life to me. And it seems to be this common thread that I'm noticing. A lot of them are talking about how they feel like they're always begging for sex and settling for scraps.
Okay.
And it seems like, they send their spouse, like, she seems to be uninterested. That's the common scenario. So they'll send them like a podcast link, like to your podcast, or an article online or something, or like try to get them to download the app in the hopes that it'll rekindle something to get more sex in their marriage. And they're always frustrated. What's that called, and why does that happen?
Well, we need to come up with a name for it because it's pretty common. And I think it's something that happens in any kind of a committed relationship as you go further into it, because it's part of a developmental process, almost, you could say, that, when we first start and meet each other, there's a lot of novelty and newness and energy and passion, and everybody's on their best behavior and interested. It's just, there's an engagement that goes on. And then as things continue on in a relationship, it's naturally going to get a different weight to it. And some of the different chemicals you have in your brain when you meet and fall in love, they dissipate and disappear and can't come back. And so it's recognizing that this is just a dilemma that most people carry into a marriage because they think sex should be natural and it should be easy. And so therefore, in this instance, I think for the sake of our conversation, we'll frame it in a male-female, but it's a higher desire, lower desire.
Right. It could go either way.
Absolutely. But it is one that I think a lot of men come into this and we struggle with. We wonder, why would she not want this? It's such a good thing. She even enjoys it because she could maybe even achieve orgasm regularly. And I consider myself a good lover. And, and I'm doing all of the steps according to the app or the podcast or the blogs, or, I send the messages, I start foreplay early, I do all those things, and it's still nothing. And so I think it's recognizing that this is a part of a dynamic that's uncovering ourselves. It's not just about sex. This is about being vulnerable and honest. And so if I'm sitting here saying and claiming, well, one quick addendum, I think a lot of times when we frame this way, who's the problem? She is, right? It's like there's something wrong with her, right? That the lower desire... Yeah, the lower desire's got some sort of chemical issue, or it's never on her desire, or whatever it might be.
Or the kids, or they find something.
Right. There's always some distraction or to-do list or something. And so it's recognizing that when I frame it this way, it's real easy for me to blame my partner rather than recognizing I am a big part of the problem. Because if I'm sitting here saying at the outset, I really want a great sexual experience with my wife, but yet I settle for the crumbs or just mediocre or obligatory sex, what am I teaching her? I'll accept whatever's offered, right? So where is that coming from in me then? Because that's a different dilemma that it creates, because this is about, am I really willing to hold out for something better? Am I willing to take that risk? Am I willing to totally disrupt everything? Because that's a big card to play. And a lot of times this isn't just a marital play, this is a personal play, because I have to start to examine, what am I seeking sex for? What is this really all about? Is it something that's enjoyable and the overflow of me? Or is it something that I get a lot of validation and importance from as a person, as a man, as a husband?
Gotcha. Let's talk about two topics that you just brought up that I think we need to do a little bit of double clicking on, a little bit of deep dive. So first is, what are some of the harm, like when this dynamics, happens, what are the harmful relationship things that couples do, like a husband might do to a wife, whether it's control or manipulation, or in what ways do couples tend to go about it the wrong way?
Well, I think we start to get into this whole concept that we're approaching it from the lowest common denominator component, right? That I'm trying to convince somebody else that what I'm offering is actually good without having done the work to see, is what I'm offering really good? Is it the best in me? Is it truly compassion and love that I'm seeking? And is it to the benefit of my partner too? Because this is the struggle, Dan. If what I say I really want for my partner is for them to be free and alive in that aspect of our marriage, that also means that she needs to be able to be free and alive outside of that aspect of my marriage, which might mean she's not interested, right? That's not a part of what she wants in her life. And so most of the time, I think we approach sex with a lot of the cultural norms or religious connotations that we've had growing up. And there's a lot of anxiety surrounding this. And so therefore we get into this thinking it should be something we're doing. And anytime you set up something as an obligation, it's destined to be pretty bad.
Especially when you start calling it a need instead of a desire.
Right. Yeah, because you're not giving free choice and willingness to be a part of it and the better parts of us. So it's kind of looking at this as, a lot of times I think couples try to negotiate it, rather than how am I being free with who I am and expressing who I am, with less emphasis and weight on how does she respond and reciprocate in kind, versus am I revealing parts of me that truly is the strength of me? Because I think we can approach almost any topic in life either from a strength or a weakness. And so if I'm coming at it from a strength-based approach, I'm willing to share and be expressive. And it's not about, does she reciprocate in kind? It's about, do I have room to just be alive and vibrant in who I am in that part of my life?
Gotcha. So that's the strength side. What are some examples of the weak side? Like
The weak side is I send a sext or a prompt, or I make some sort of innuendo or a statement, and she just doesn't even acknowledge it. And then I erupt. You never think about, and that's, I had something attached to that I was looking for validation or something in response. And when I don't get it, I crumble, which that's information then that I think I need to recognize. That's a revealing of me in that moment. So do I start to look at my truth and how I'm operating and what I'm really looking for? Because I think we really do approach a lot of relational dynamic aspects of our marriage with a lot of attachment and a lot of need and a lot, a lot of the worst in us in some regards. And that's what creates this minefield of pressure and dilemma. And then it just becomes this dynamic that you described at the beginning of a wife will participate in sex enough to get you off her back. And then you start the process all over again, rather than there's a vibrancy and a freedom and a choice and a desire and an interest on both parties.
Gotcha. If you're in this situation, you're stuck in this dynamic, what are some of the first steps you should take or you can take to get you through it?
Well, so I'm assuming we're talking about the husband here from the buddies that you're having dinner with or having coffee with during the day. it's probably a lot of self-evaluation and awareness, and then just brutal honesty about yourself of what am I really seeking? And is it coming from fullness in the best sides of me, or is it coming from emptiness? That is this something that I'm truly trying to expand and create something, and giving her freedom and handling it? I mean, we actually had this just the other day with an Academy member, which that's the Sexy Marriage Radio. We have a little membership side to it, and there's some chats that go on. And one of the ladies just shared that this whole process is actually coming into fruition because he brought up sex right before Thanksgiving, and she was not interested at that moment, which was kind of an abnormal for her because she's typically they're both are kind of later on in life and interested a lot more because there's a little more freedom for them with just schedule. And she wasn't interested at that moment, or just couldn't. And he handled it really well. When the old him would have pouted and been mad, shots across the bow, different things that we can do that aren't good. And she recognized a short time after that exchange happened, and then kind of watching how he was handling himself became incredibly attractive to her. And so when they finally had a chance to get together, it was a great time together. And it's just because you can start to recognize, yes, I have things I want, and it's going to hurt if I don't get what I want, but do I crumble? And there's a big difference. And so I think a lot of times us men, we need to ask ourselves, how much weight am I placing on an orgasmic experience, if you will, or on an erection, if you will, versus just expressing of me, letting her feel that, and letting that be cleaner pressure in the dynamic, rather than she has to respond in a certain way or in kind. Does she? No, married sex to me is a long game, right? I'm in it for the long haul with Pam. And so if I do something and she says no, well, it's either good judgment or bad judgment on her part.
Right.
Right. My hope is that it's bad judgment on her part, right? Because that means I'm handling my side of it well. But if it's good judgment, that's where I've got to be completely honest about, is the sex I'm offering worth wanting?
Gotcha. So there are situations where her declining sex is good judgment on her part because the sex you're offering is awful.
Well, it may not and this is a good distinction here, Dan, because the experience itself, as far as the physical and the pleasure, may not be right. It could be an orgasmic, fun, pleasurable time together, and that's one we got to add. That's just one aspect of sex going on, though, because what she might be actually seeing is what I'm offering is I need her to prop me up and make me feel better about me in this moment, which that has nothing to do with sex. That has to do with my identity and my value and my worth as a human being. And I think we get into these moments where this is the pattern. I think you'll probably come across a bunch. Maybe you've had it too. I've had it in my marriage where it's been a couple of days and I'm just edgy. And it's like, I got this rhythm. I was like, well, hey, something's wrong, because like, really, am I that much in the canine world as a human being that I can't handle a desire if it's not met immediately? Seriously, I mean, we're evolved as a species further than all the other species. So it's recognizing this is a dynamic, and all of it is a language to help us see what's my part in this. How am I collusive, or how am I helping create it, but yet trying to take the sophisticated stance of it's all her fault.
Gotcha. Yeah. So sometimes people's identities, like the higher desire spouse, like in this case, the husband, their identity is wrapped up a bit in, I'm a good husband because my wife desires me sexually, or I'm a good husband, or I'm a good man because we have lots of sex. And when that doesn't happen, all of a sudden they don't think highly of themselves anymore. They look for that validation too much.
Well, yeah, you start questioning yourself on, okay, is that really all I am? Is that really what I am? And I mean, we are complicated beings as humans, right? We are more than just linear identities. It's not just what I provide, financially, if I'm the one that's the major breadwinner. It's not just how I care for my family if I'm the one that's primary. It's not just how I'm always adventure. It's all of these things of, Married life has a sophisticated way of revealing and exposing all of us to our spouse, right? And so a lot of times the map my wife will have of me, she will know if what I'm offering and pursuing in sex is expansive and from a growth side, or is it I need something from you to help me feel better about me.
And that is really unsexy, by the way.
It is. At the same time, though, and this is where she's complicit too, because if she's not willing to address that aspect of her own life and recognizing that the role she's taking of just getting you off your back with mercy sex, that's just giving the littlest I have to of myself and hoping you'll be okay with it, or helping you be satisfied with it, or ultimately not go anywhere else with it, rather than recognizing we are all have our own agency. We all have our own choice. So how do I look at the dynamic of the power that's really at play to see we both are playing this game? It's not just one side.
Great. Good point. So if you're the lower desire spouse listening to this, or like the wife in this situation, what are some steps you can take to fix the situation, make it better for your whole marriage?
Well, some of it is the same kind of questions of what is it and how I approach my sex life and my sexuality. What's that exposing of me, right? What do I have attached to it? What's the meaning of it? What's the guilt, the shame, the negative, all the different connotations, and examine and challenge those scripts. Because I don't believe in married life. There are very, very few times in married life where one spouse has a moral high ground on the other. Right? There's no high ground typically in marriage.
Really? We like to think that there's always.
Absolutely. We like to think that I'm much more virtuous in the manner in which I'm approaching what I want, rather than realizing my spouse has complete control and right to what they want to. And so it's seeing it as, okay, what is this in how I'm conducting myself? What does this really say? Is there parts of my life and my sexuality that I'm scared of, or I'm ashamed of, or I'm unsure of? Where's that come from? And examine that, challenge that. Ask yourself the real questions of that. I mean, this is the thing that you find a lot of times between the male-female dynamic of a husband can think a wife is incredibly sexy, especially as she has changed and matured and grown into life, and gravity takes over and life comes in, and things where all of a sudden you're not the prototypical what society deems as airbrushed sexy. But yet she's got self-conscious and some insecurity, and that's something that she's fought long before he was even part of her life. And so he can sit there and say it and she doesn't buy it, right? And so it's just, this is the same kind of dynamic of, hold on, what's really being seen here? And what's really true? How do I view me? How am I growing and evolving into my own being and my own power, and utilizing this towards what I want and what's life-giving to my life and my own marriage?
So it takes a bit of self-examination and really being really honest with yourself. But we tend
honesty is key. Yeah, honesty is absolutely key to this.
Any tips for
go ahead.
helping us see our own blind spots? Because that's really hard to lock yourself in a room and just go, oh, I get it now.
Well, okay. The best way to do it is have the courage to ask yourself the question of, okay, in the way my wife is responding to me, what if she's right? What if the basis of her reaction has truth in it? What does that say about me? Right? And then,
right.
Or you can also add to it, if you're a parent, either male or female, right? And I would use this in my context, if my daughter was to marry someone like me, what would I hope she does not have to deal with in a relationship with someone like me?
Gotcha.
Because we all know the things where I cut the corners, I shave it, I skew it, or there's just the parts of me. My wife and I actually had this conversation last night of, what is it like being married to me? And I had to answer it for her, right?
In front of her, which is really
right.
scary.
And we're having this conversation. And so I can have the good and I can have the bad. And we need to have both because they both exist. And so it's recognizing, okay, some of this is some of the stuff I need to work on, but also some of this is some of the stuff that's just exposed of who I am. And how do I make sure I'm not weaponizing it? How do I make sure I'm acknowledging it and steering it as best I can so there's less collateral damage to her and to others?
Gotcha. So then after you've kind of gone through that, maybe your approach to your spouse is more like, hey, I've got a lot of me to work on, and you might have a few apologies you owe. Sorry about the way I've been treating you. Haven't been treating you the best.
Okay, but if you're going to do this, you need to be completely accurate as much as possible and specific, because the blanket, anything I've done in the past that's hurt you, I'm sorry for. That's crap in my book, right? Instead, it's, you know what, honey? I have not handled your rejections of me well. I've pouted, I've been angry, and I've held you responsible and treated you as if you're broken. And I'm in the wrong for that. That's a different apology of dealing with it, right? Because that's a being honest and owning my side of the dynamic. It's also a bold move to deal with the dynamic and the pressure in the marriage better.
And you also have to be at the right mind and heart to say that with the no strings attached attitude. You're not saying it to get. You're not giving to get. You're not apologizing in the hope that she apologizes back and then you got her, right? That's not an apology.
Right. No, it's not. That's the lowest common denominator thing. That's going down to the worst in us. That's going down to the parts of us that are manipulative. And I'm expecting reciprocity rather than, you know what? I'm just trying to handle me and move me into a better part of life. And I really hope you'll join me. And we'll see.
So what I hear you saying is, if you want to build a really good sex life, you need to step up to become the very best within you in all aspects of your life.
Right. Because in marriage, this isn't just about sex, right? Because this is about how am I carrying myself in the other aspects of my life, because she sees it or he sees it. He knows it all, right? He knows. I mean, if I don't handle myself in some social circumstances, and I know it's not attractive to my wife, but I continually deny and act like what I do in social circumstances is not a problem, that's a problem in the bedroom.
Right.
So it's just recognizing all of this. We can't compartmentalize in marriage because all of it gets exposed.
All of it is. And probably it plays itself out in so many nuanced ways in that relationship too.
Mm-hmm. It does. And so it's just recognizing, okay, this is about me earning my own self-respect. This is about me maturing and growing into somebody I like, that I can put myself, my head on the pillow at the end of the day, most days, and have a majority of, I'm really pretty good with how I handled myself. And here's where the areas I'm not, right? I'm still got some work in it, because I think that's the journey of life. We don't ever get perfection, or if we do, it's really short-lived, right? Because I do believe well, no, because I do believe I can have situations where, like, I am so glad in how I handled that. I did that really, really well. I want to acknowledge that, right? So, but I can't act like, oh, I'm done. I have achieved it, and now no. It's a constant process, because if what I'm wanting for my spouse and my marriage is a more vibrant and alive, moving beyond just bad sex and monotonous, obligatory functional sex, and getting into the world of expansive, what could be where both of us are in levels of sex, that requires all of me.
That's great. What are some exercises that couples can do to kind of rebuild that part of the relationship, like the hugging to relax exercise?
So this is the thing from Dr. Schnarch that is a technique he's created. It's been around for decades, actually. And it's pretty difficult. It takes quite a bit to set it up to really do it well. But the whole concept of it is it's about soothing and centering yourself. We'll just kind of go blanket, layman terms, simple to start. If you're interested in more, pick up Passionate Marriage. Is where it's described the best towards the end of that book. But it's about you have a time where you kind of center yourself almost in a meditative way, just to kind of get present. Your spouse is doing the same. You're roughly 3 or 4 feet apart from each other at this moment. And then when you're ready, you take a step forward. Then when your spouse is ready, they take a step forward and you hug. And this isn't the TP hug where you lean on each other. This is the move in and embrace one another, but stay on your own 2 feet. And then you spend 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, and you increase it as you go because it's hard, handling yourself in close proximity to them. Because what do we do, Dan, whenever you and Emily are hugging and you're trying something like this and she repositions, can't you internalize that as it's something you've done? What's wrong with her? And we start going crazy. Or I reach the point of, this is enough. I want to break this, and this is all revelatory of how I handle myself in life.
It's like a symbol, like
it
little
totally
mini story
is.
that plays out your relationship.
And so how do I calm myself down to be present in that moment and create room for them in that moment? And this is what we're doing in all of marriage. It's what we're doing in all of life. How do I let my wife be who she wants to be, and I can stay around and be okay and address what I might need? Because there are some times where, yeah, they break it, or I say, hey, maybe we've had rhythms of we've tried this several times, and I come to, I really want to do hugging, and I am not in a place to do it. That's going to hurt, right? What are you saying? You're leaving, and I can easily overreact versus, okay, let me know when you're ready. And I handle myself and I calm myself down, and the whole world doesn't crumble. And I keep going, and then I see where we are. And all of that is really good data to then confront honestly about what are we really doing? Where are we really?
Any black belt sex tips you can offer as we conclude this interview? Like, let's say you're at a good spot, you're doing well as a couple. Now we need some advanced stuff to kind of take things. You're kind of plateaued. And you want to take the next level.
Well, so usually I don't have to offer up anything that's novel for people because they've already got it in their own mind. They just have not had the courage to say it.
All right.
And so a lot of times it's you know what, I've always wanted to try X.
On the roof, whatever.
Or it could even be so far as I've always wanted to try turning on a light in the middle of this thing and actually see you. Right? Because there's a lot of couples that it's too anxiety provoking. So it's in the dark, or it's with parts of clothes are still on, or it's, so it doesn't have to be something way crazy kinky, but it can be, but it's just the whole, how do you bring it up? How do you say it in the moment, or even outside of it? How do you come up, say, you know what? I really want to try the app, or you know what? I really want to incorporate a toy, or I really want to open my eyes and during this, or so it's a lot of it is just, what are some of the things that you've wanted to test out, but you've been too scared to even say it? Well, say it. There's a black belt tip, because when you do, this is the struggle. Anytime I'm presenting something that's novel, it's always unilateral. I can't undo that bell, right? I can't put the genie back in the bottle.
Right.
When I say, I've always wanted to have sex on the roof, right? Now, every time we're outside, she's going to go, oh, he's wanting to have sex on the roof. It's like, well, yeah, it's out there. So it's just willing to handle me again in the middle of all of that and be okay with it, because we need novelty to see our spouses in new lights. And sex is one way, but the other parts of our life are the other too. I mean, go do some other adventures that you haven't done. Take dance classes together, learn a new language together, go on a trip together, skydive, whatever it might be. That's seeing your spouse in a different light. That all equates to the bedroom.
Thank you. Any last tips you want to share?
Realize that when you hit these pressure points of marriage, there's nothing going wrong. That would probably be the biggest, is because if I'm trying to really get into an intimate relationship with somebody else, it's not for wimps. It's scary and it's challenging. And there's a lot of times where it's like, why did I even bring that up? You kind of question yourself, because temporarily it's not good and it's uncomfortable, but you recognize, okay, wait. And when we recover well and we move forward, now we're tasting what marriage really can be with two vibrant, alive people. Because I term great marriages and great sex lives all under the umbrella of it's couples that recover well. That's it. It's not something they're not doing or doing. It's no technique. It's about somebody tried something. Oh, that didn't work, but we recover well. You say something because you weren't at your best and you recover well. That's a great marriage to me.
And over time, you get better and better and better, little bits at a time.
Right. But there's always hiccups and bumps, right? And so there's always need for recovery because we are never always on our game.
That's really good. If they want to find out more about you or reach out to you, how did they get in touch?
That's pretty easy. That's just smrnation.com. That's where everything is. All the shows, over 1,000 blog posts. I mean, there's tons and tons of information, plus new courses coming in 2021 and the percolating of a new community coming in 2021. So we'll see. We'll see what's coming.
Exciting. Great.
Yeah, it should be.
Great. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, man. This was fun.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of Get Your Marriage On. And if you did, we would love it if you would take a few seconds to give us a rating on iTunes and to share the show with your friends. They'll thank you for life. Once you've done that, you can head over to getyourmarriageon.com for more resources about today's topic and to download our amazing marriage apps. Now go get your marriage on.